BC, so I think we're kind of underselling, but not underselling. We're so worried about why is Ed Foley still in Lincoln that we forgot that Nebraska has a long snapper and a punter. Is it strange that with all that's going on, those may be the two biggest portal additions so far if they pan out?
Uh, no, I mean, those spots can lift the whole thing of special teams. I mean, we've seen where basically if you are missing at place kicker, punter, or long snapper, everything else could sort of be in order, or you think it is, and it's not. It's going to get drowned out by that. So I think those are monster additions on paper. Obviously, you hope nobody gets the yips or anything once they get here and they do the job well. And as they say about the long snapper, you like to hear that they got one, and then you hopefully never hear his name again. That's sort of his job, is to disappear and just handle business so we don't speak of it. But yeah, it would have probably helped Ed Foley get to sleep a few nights this fall if a couple of those things had been a little bit better, particularly the long snapper. So it was definitely a need, and at least it's a case where I have remembered when Nebraska's added a position like long snapper before, and people are like, why can't they just find someone on the roster and all that? I think in this case, everybody nodded their head when they saw Kevin Gallick, and they're like, all right, bring him in. Let's see what he can do. Let's go. So at least it was understood by everybody from the mistakes of this past fall why it was so necessary.
BC, as you're kind of looking at the transfer portal and the additions, obviously some specialists have been landed, but is there, what is your desire to see them find a return man, or do you like what they've got internally already?
Return man wise, I wouldn't mind another option. I'm really intrigued by Andrew Marshall, the kid out of Idaho, who is he's a solid DB. He's done well there, but he also had 2 returns for touchdowns for him. One, I think, is a kick returner, one is a punt returner. So I always like seeing stuff like that. I think he won league special teams player of the week multiple times. So, can he transfer that to this level? I don't know, but guys who have done it at any level at that position as a return man, they seem to have that confidence and sort of that fearlessness that translates pretty well usually. And so that's why I'd be optimistic about a guy like him. So if Nebraska were to land Andrew Marshall, it might say DB on the descriptions on Twitter or whatever when people put it out there if that were to happen, but you got to think of him as at least an option as to that return game, and that's a big part of it.
BC, as Nebraska's kind of navigating this whole portal visit world, have you allowed yourself to kind of think about, because they will be young in some key spots, that if this kind of year has any sort of success, that this is sustainable and resets kind of his initial thought of still being developmental, but also supplementing. This is kind of a critical year, which in my opinion, makes this bowl season and these practices that much more important when he says, well, this is the first game of next year. I take him at face value there.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really the way you have to look at it. That's been a shift in my thinking too. I never thought of it as at the start of the new season as much. And it's I was just thinking about this, how if you had asked me 4 or 5 years ago if what I would do if I had some young players in my system that I like, but I also had seniors at that spot sort of in front of them, what I would do in the bowl game, I would have said, well, I'll play the guys I played most of the season because it's still a game, and every game Nebraska steps on the field is important. This definitely is that, but I've tweaked my thinking to I can see where even where you do still have some veterans around, you would want to mix in some of those younger players for some real reps, on defense or offense, and see what they can do in this setting. I think that's probably important to do. So I'm really curious how they try to balance that. There's certain positions where you have no choice but to sort of change how you're going. Like on the defensive line, they have, I know Ty Robinson has said he wants to play, and he's doing the pinstripe press Zoom call tomorrow, so that even suggests that he's continuing with that. You have Nash, who I know has had some knee issues, late in the year, so we'll see there. But you go through the rest, and you're going to have to get more snaps out of Cameron Lenhardt, whomever, Riley Van Poppel, guys like that. And we're in such a weird time, guys. I almost hesitate to write or say names now anymore because I'm not speaking like cryptically about anyone specifically, but in general, it's like that guy's still over there, right? You kind of always have that like in the back of your mind when you're even talking on the radio. And so you got to be real careful. But there are definite spots where guys who maybe played 8 to 10 snaps in a game, and that was more Lenhardt's role this year. If you look, his snaps kind of dwindled. Someone like him, maybe you gotta bump that up big time here, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, listen, full disclosure, I mean, I feel the same way. Like, like Ives or Hartzog or some of these guys, I'm like, wait,
they haven't hopped in, right?
They're still there, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I get it.
Yeah, no matter how much you pay attention, like you do have this little hesitancy.
That's legit. Like I said, 2 days before Keona Davis said he was going to enter the portal, I was like, oh, Keona Davis, right? Parents just got I was like, wait a minute. Keona's leaving?
Yeah.
Keona's not leaving.
And then 3 days later, he's back.
So, I mean, I get the trepidation.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned Keona Davis. See, that's the thing. Like I was talking to linemen, you don't say Keona Davis. Someone's like, oh, what about Keona Davis? Yeah, he'd be a big guy in a game like this too. So, but that's the weird phase we're in this month where you're kind of double checking yourself all the time and for good reason. But it is going to be really interesting that I don't think we're just talking about special teams in this particular game that you might see more of this guy or that guy. It's going to be at different position groups, and that's what makes it kind of exciting. You've got that, and then you've got the aspect of John Butler being the D coordinator for the first time with all this going on. I think you got to keep in mind some of the stuff he's dealing with as he takes on that challenge for the first game. But all that adds a really interesting sidebar to a game. Sometimes people might just kind of wave their hand at, but I think Nebraska fans will kind of sit up because of those things and watch it closely.
BC, why do you think we lend any credence to what, like, the outside? So this is just me, and feel free to shoot this down, but like if the game matters to Boston College fan base, yep. Nebraska's fan base, like, why do you think we get bogged down with what everybody else thinks?
Yeah, we shouldn't in this one because you're right. Both teams are into it. So this is actually a really good, aside from the playoff games, like the bowl games, I know sometimes get a bad rap, like, okay, who's actually playing for each side? That is a real story elsewhere. But whoever's in New York for this game for both squads, they're interested and they have a lot invested into not just that game, but what it means for them going into next year and kind of starting to build their resume. As you said in one of your first questions, like that's why these bowl practices are such a big deal. There's so many guys like in that secondary right now that are, looking for their spot next year. And,
having the times of their life too, B.
Yeah, I bet. Like it's like a pre-spring football, and you've got a game actually in front of you this time. So that I think adds to it. So I would be jacked up. Like you say, if I were a second-year freshman or sophomore over there and suddenly you're getting all these reps and it's like, we might need you in this spot and it's real, like this is what you've kind of been waiting for and building and behind the curtain, and now you're actually going on the stage. That's got to be there's got to be a lot of added juice. I think those guys are going to be fired up for it.
If I'm Mason Goldman or somebody like that, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah,
Mason
what I mean? Goldman's a good name.
Well, BC, yeah. I was going to ask about the defensive line a little bit because I know that we got sort of excited about all the depth that they had there throughout the year, but do you think this might be kind of an interesting opportunity where the depth has been taken from you to see guys like whether it's Mason Goldman or Cam Lenhardt that, Cam Lenhardt, especially a guy that we thought had a lot of potential and a lot of ability, maybe see him get an expanded role and be able to thrive in it, or like a Keona Davis or an Elijah Judy?
Yeah. Sometimes that does happen where it's like, okay, now it's your turn. You have to take the reins. And so just certain guys like really excel when that responsibility is put on their shoulders. Lenhardt would be a guy who it wouldn't surprise me if that were the case. We saw like early on in his freshman year, like all the potential that's there. I still remember the sack he had, a Shedeur Sanders in Boulder, where it was just like man-hand sack, like it was that guy's a dude, like already at age 18. So I know it hasn't maybe been the year some expected for him, but I liked his mindset last week when he did the press conference. You could tell it's like sort of a reset. I know that I'm supposed to be this guy now. Let's go be that guy, take on that challenge. He didn't waste a lot of words with it. He's just ready for it. I do think there's going to be examples like that where guys can do it. And I think Keona Davis is a guy who was ahead of the curve, this year. He only played 90 snaps, but I felt like just size-wise and all that, he fit in for the position he was playing more than I've seen most first-year freshmen. And I made no bones about it. I knew Damon was optimistic he was going to come back from the portal. But when he first entered, that one hit me harder than any guy that I've seen with Nebraska for the day or two that happened. And so I was like, they got to get that guy back. So I was really happy when they did.
Yeah. B, how about like the actual game itself when you look at the matchup? How close do you think we have to get to the game before you feel like we can even remotely start to cap it, right? Do we need to see a couple of practices? Or do you feel like you have a sense, based on who's still left on the roster, how the game is going to be played?
No, I don't. I don't have a good read on it
tough.
at all. I mean, it is. And it kind of stinks because we've been waiting for Nebraska to be back in a bowl game. And like me, I'm kind of old school on stuff. Like I still wish it was like just a normal like Tuesday bowl practice notebook, where you're talking about I'm getting ready for this particular guy from Boston College. And there's just none of that because for obvious reasons, we're so taken by everything else and chasing stuff over here. So there is a Zoom call tomorrow with the coordinators and a couple players. Dylan and Ty are on it for Nebraska, Holgerson and Butler. And then Rule and some players on Friday just to kind of lay out what the media availability is this week. And I say that to answer your question. I think with that, maybe we start to bridge into those conversations, I hope, more. Because the last time with Rule, for fair reason, we were kind of asking about coaching hires and stuff like that. Some of that's still in the wind a little bit, so you got to cover that ground. But I do think it is time to kind of get into this matchup some.
So since it's all we have to go on is paper, I've asked this question to folks that cover. Is Nebraska's staff on paper better on December 18th than they were October 18th?
The coaching staff, yes. I like it a little better on paper. I love the Terry Braden hire on paper. And I might be influenced because I talked to DiCaprio Boodle for a while about him. And, Boodle, different position, but he was in that Chiefs locker room, and he said that guy had a voice over there. Like, don't be fooled by the assistant D-line stuff. Like, he was a guy who dug in with whether you're a rookie, whether you were a 10-year guy who was an all-pro, he was well-respected. And I think they really did their homework on him. And then you talk about the DB's coach, Addison Williams, and I know some of this stuff hasn't been made official yet, but he's been a D coordinator at 3 different times, and I'm always impressed when you've had that responsibility. And Gus Malzahn really trusted him. I mean, not just recently, but like in 2019, Addison Williams was his assistant to the head coach in title over at Auburn, and so. I mean, that's a guy who, Malzahn, I know some people, he's lost his luster a little bit, but let's remember, he was one of the names in college coaching for a little bit, and he thinks a lot of this guy. So, I don't know. It's just that you talk about the experience and sort of how it could play off each other on paper. I actually like it more.
Hasn't lost his luster with me, BC. I love Gus Malzahn.
I was just getting ready to say we're sitting next to a big Gus honk over here because – We have to talk about this dude randomly at least once or twice a week.
He's better than people remember. That's all I'm saying. Good head coach.
He's still thinking of Trey Mason and Nick Marshall. That's the Gus Malzahn he's thinking of at all.
Yeah, I mean, I have some nightmares for the first half of the 2013 National Championship game. I'm not going to lie to you. No, I've always been really impressed with the stuff that he runs and all the window dressing. And it's simple, but it looks complicated. I like it. There's a lot going on there. It's good stuff. That's all. There's a big Gus Malzahn fan. I don't know what's wrong with that.
Well, I'm glad to bring him up. Glad to get him on your show for you.
I appreciate you helping me hit my quota this week for Gus Malzahn talk.
Hey, B, how are you guys doing what's the breakdown for the 24/7 crew?
I'm flying out on Christmas. I'm leaving from Kansas City because I got a better rate.
There's
and
a
I'm
couple of
company
players'
guy.
families doing that too. You may be on a popular flight.
All right. Well, I'll look for them. So I'm leaving the 25th, and then I don't actually have lodging that night. I could be staying at the JFK in Terminal 4, but
who does?
That's okay. Kind of a little adventure. Bruns gets in the next day.
But you're within a week, man.
Yeah.
You probably need to figure that out.
Like he just says, "Oh, carefree." I don't know where I'm staying. No. I don't know.
I didn't. I told you where I'm staying. That's where I'm staying. I know I'm gonna do that. So I've already planned in my head that I'm gonna do that. So
you gonna pull Tom Hanks, just sleep in the terminal? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that could be an interest. I could have some good stories for you, like when we come back from the New Year's. But I'm saying I'll have some fresher content for you then. But that's my plan. And then Brunson's coming on the 26th, and the team I know leaves the 23rd. But I don't think there's going to be any media coverage out there till like the 26th. So that's what I think's going to happen. So I was going to go on the 23rd at one point, and then I realized nobody in the Nebraska media was doing likewise. And so I decided not to spend the extra whatever $800 was going to cost me to spend those 2 days in New York. So,
yeah, this is a total first world problem, but if it wasn't easily done for me in terms of accommodations, I wouldn't be leaving with the team on the 23rd either. But it's just you know what I mean? Because it's convenient, but it's not convenient. Because it's gonna
be there for a long time.
Be there for a long time, but this begs the question: what time do you land in New York on Christmas, where you're just gonna contemplate terminaling in it?
I like how worried you guys are for me. I'm like kind of almost like mini excited about it. Like I did research, and
are you flying into LaGuardia?
No, it's JFK. LaGuardia, I read, will kick you out from like 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 4
Shocker,
p.m.
you've done research.
Yeah.
I am so surprised.
So you're flying into JFK specifically so you can sleep in the terminal?
Yeah. They said there's spots you can do it.
That's incredible.
So I've kind of looked into it, and
bless your heart, BC.
I don't know. I sound like a cheapskate, but
no, you sound like you. Like this is the most BC thing ever.
So what time is your flight scheduled to land on the 25th?
About 9 o'clock, 9:30. And I don't want to make it seem like my company wouldn't pay for that. They would, like if I went and got a hotel, but it always looks better. Like it's like, okay, I could save $300.
Yeah, like you're just
here.
low maintenance.
I'm gonna do that, not draw a lot of attention to myself. Go straight over. I've got it planned out how to get to Fordham University where the practice is on the 26th. In my head, this is like a fun adventure. So it's not a headspace you want to get inside a lot. But I'm looking forward to it.
So can I just ask one more follow up to that? Are you a sleeper?
Yeah, I mean, I'll
that would be fine with me because that airport is almost never going to be quote unquote empty. So
and DB doesn't sleep, so he just wander around.
So
all
I mean,
night.
I guess I could just walk and wander, but can you like sleep up? Like,
are you planning on like posting up and like actually sleeping?
I think I need 2 hours. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So it's like give me 2 or 3 hours, and the rest is what you're speaking of: walking around, just being a people watcher, maybe writing a couple things. Probably not spelling some of the words right at that time, but whatever. So that's my plan. So Not a plan that you should actually lay out publicly because it's a little embarrassing, but that's what I'm going to do. So I'll tell you how it goes when we get back from the break. Hopefully you'll see me, Damon, at the stadium at least on the 28th, and then I make it. So that's what I'm going with.
Unbelievable.
BC,
BC for pads at JFK.
This is going to be a real deep cut joke that you may not get, but if a man comes up to you and he's trying to get medicine into the country, say it's goat medicine. That's what you need to tell him.
Wow.
All right, I got it.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody did. BC, we appreciate it as always, and we wish you the best. I hope you live tweet your overnight experience at JFK.
Okay.
I would enjoy that.
You're still the GOAT, BC. Appreciate you.
All right. Enjoy being on, guys. Thanks.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7.